Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas, and this week my guest is the founder and CEO of DiversiFund, Craig Cecilio. Welcome, Craig.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. If you could, for everyone, can you tell us what DiversiFund is and how it came to be?
Yeah, Diversity Fund is a movement. We're trying to open private markets to the individual investor, direct to retail. So, regardless of your socioeconomic background, we're opening private markets to everyone. We're US based and we have about 30,000 customers right now. So, we pull the money from customers and we go out and we find alternative investments. Our first product has been multifamily real estate. We've done that for the past 5 years, and we've amassed a portfolio close to 300 million of real estate. We sold close to 150 million dollars in real estate, and we're growing. Yeah, so it's been pretty successful over the past few years.
Okay. And so the company was started in 2016, looks like.
16 is when it was started. Came up with the idea in 14, and we got SEC qualified in late 18, early 19. This is comes out of the Jobs Act of 2012, and there was a lot of regulation. And when Congress passes something, when they did in 12, it didn't get active until late 2016. And then I like to say all the sharks or all the attorneys get involved, and it's not an easy process to pass the paperwork through the SEC for qualification is the word. And I have to be technical with the words. I can't use the wrong word, or they say, okay, it's the wrong thing. I can be fined for that. So it's kind of going through that and that learning curve of how to articulate the right words when dealing with these regulatory agencies. And then our first one got qualified in late 18, went to market in middle of 19. It's when we decreased those barriers to, I think the minimums became $500 in July of 2019.
Okay. All right, so you mentioned this came out of the Jobs Act, and you were already in the investment arena at that time, right? When you saw this coming?
Yeah, now you're giving away my age. Yeah, since the late 90s. Yeah, I've been around a while. So,
Okay,
yeah, I've been around sometimes syndicating, raising capital, doing deals.
okay. So when this Jobs Act is passed, and you see this new change to the law that basically allows this company, your company, to come into existence, like what was that process like when the kind of the light bulb went on and you realized like there's something here and getting it from an idea into something tangible?
Yeah, I think it goes all back to childhood and growing up. And you don't know much when you're a kid what's going around you. I grew up in a pretty wealthy county, Fairfield County, and I didn't know what our economic status was. And my dad was worked in retail. My mom was a school teacher, so we were a pretty working class family in a very affluent area. I didn't know that. I just didn't know like this family went to the country club and we didn't. We went to the beach, so I didn't really know what was going on. And as I got older, I kind of understood that. And when I got into my career into real estate and raising capital, I started servicing accredited investors, wealthy institutions, family offices, and I started serving them and making them money. And there was always something inside of me that was like, hey, something's off, something's not right, something's not matching to my like core values, my core beliefs. I'm making wealthy people wealthier, and so when I saw that opportunity that I could open this up to everyone, it kind of like flipped a light switch in me. Like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. I could take my knowledge, what I've learned, and give this to people like myself who didn't have that opportunity. And so now we did it. We built this platform. It's been a wild and crazy ride, and that's the kind of passion that pushes me to do this day in and day out.
Okay. And you mentioned too, right, with the legislation, and that took time, and then some of the regulatory hurdles. I mean, what was that like when you have this business, you want to get it started, you have the idea, but the legislation takes time, and then the SEC filings and the paperwork and whatever else you have to do there. Like, what was that process like when because entrepreneurs, they just want to run and get going, and clearly you had a lot of hurdles to overcome with that.
Yeah, it was painful. It was expensive. And a good analogy is the turtle wins the race, and it's kind of that's how fast you're going, like a turtle in the race. It just you want to go fast, however, you have to go through those hoops. You have to, and learning how to navigate with that industry, with the regulators, and how to work with them, and who to hire, and which attorneys and which firms to use. You start learning that with time, and there's a cost to it. And at the same time, you're trying to build a company and build a profit. Those two things took a lot of, I would say, grit to get through over the years. A lot of patience, but a lot of grit to get through all that.
And as you're going through that process, right? Like you see the vision, but like you said, you need grit to deal with the day to day. Like this is not happening. I mean, did you ever have moments where you doubted the idea and doubted yourself when you were like right in the middle of all that adversity?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, there's obstacles thrown at you all the time. And even today, there's obstacles thrown at you all the time, and you're always questioning yourself: "Is why am I doing this?" I had a perfectly profitable company before this, which was very low, really startup cost to get them going, and they were performing just fine. And so I questioned myself as, "Hey, why am I sacrificing so much stuff for something that's down the road? Why am I sacrificing my life and my family to do something that may never happen, may never be successful?" So all the time, especially when you have a family and you have kids, and when you're doing it and the rewards don't come immediately, they're kind of still coming down the road for that. Always questioning that, and but the passion and the desire was always there to do this, and just looking at the wins that I would get along the way just made it worth the while to do.
Okay. And like you said, right, it didn't really get going with the regulations till 2019. And then now you have at this point like over 30,000 investors. Is that right?
Over 30,000 investors on our platform. Yeah, it's quite a bit, quite a bit.
So what was that process like in terms of like it's a new idea, people aren't used to it because the law changed. Clearly this was only for accredited investors. What was it like getting customers to really buy into this idea?
In the early days, was a buzz on the industry about it. So you got a little organically. Everyone was looking for it online. I would say the first couple of years there was a big buzz in the public's eye, and then crypto kind of came. And when crypto came, kind of took the wind out of the sails with us a little bit. We're still plugging away, learning how to advertise. We were in a great bull market where everyone was kind of, and then the pandemic hit, so it forced everyone more to be online in the digital world than normal. And I think that really was responsible for our massive growth. If people are still going about their day-to-day activities and less being stuck behind a computer for a 2-year time period, we might not have had the explosive growth we did. So since they were there, we were just spending money on advertisements and getting our brand out in front of everyone. So I think there's a direct correlation with that. Things have died down a little bit in the industry across the fintech industry as a whole, due to a variety of reasons. But that I would say that is probably one of the number one reasons we were able to get that explosive growth.
Okay. So just in terms of the fact that obviously people were home, they were doing things online. Clearly, there was some stimulus that came after that where people maybe
Yeah.
had some extra money to invest, and then having this opportunity that previously wasn't available that contributed to growth too.
Yeah, and there's a couple important decisions we made along the way. One was it was in 2019. I wanted to implement a strategy called blitz scaling, and that's kind of spend a lot of money to get customers as fast as possible. And we're going to launch in March 1st of 2020. And I remember an employee in late January told me he can't come to the office anymore because there's a virus coming out of China. And we're like, what? And he had to know this employee. He was into like sci-fi stuff, and he was a little bit quirky, let's just say. When he told us, it was like, is this real or not? If someone else told us, there would be more credibility. So I'm like, we're going ahead with this thing, full steam ahead. And he was right. He was right after all. He was right, and I apologize if I said anything to him. At the end of the day, he was right about the virus. But we still went ahead with it. We still went ahead. We increased our marketing spend about 7x, from a $100,000 budget to close to a $700,000 budget. That allowed us to acquire customers in a time period where most companies were pulling back, trying to figure out what they were going to do with their businesses. One of the first things people cut is their marketing expenses, and we're flooding the market with advertisements and getting good rates and good buys and good media placements. So I think that decision, with the time period of people being online, really boosted us up in a cost-effective way to get customers to come to our platform.
And that's a great story too, because you hear that so often where, it's about taking a risk. I mean, clearly you want it to be a calculated risk. But like you said, despite what the warning from that one employee, you went ahead and you said, we're doing this, and it paid off. So congrats.
Yeah, yeah, that was thank you, thank you. It was a wild ride those 2 years, right? I'm glad things kind of are working out today. It seems really like how things are today, though. But it was definitely something that you were a little scared about. You weren't quite sure if it was going to work.
All right, and now you've, like you said, you've built up a good base of investors. What's the process like in terms of further scaling this out?
Yeah, as with any company, you evolve with time, and right now we've done a lot in the digital space. So some of the things we're implementing now is getting more of a personal touch, getting our brand out there, getting out in public, holding events, meeting people, educating them more about the product, building teams out, going nationally with more live events, and just kind of scaling in a manner in this time period. We're in a different time period today in April of 2024, where we have to look at that we are in a recession, that things are tough out there for everybody, and how do we get our message out? Because this is the time period when wealth happens. This is the time period when the wealthy get wealthier, the institutions buy discounted assets. So how do we get our product in front of people to allow them the opportunity to get a piece of the pie when generational wealth is happening? These are the times when it happens. And so that's our big campaign right now is, hey, don't miss out. Even if you have a little bit of money, because we have low minimums on our platform, get your piece of the pie before it's too late. You missed out on these opportunities.
Okay. And so you mentioned live events. Like what do those look like?
Oh, it's just getting out in front of people. It's just coming out of the pandemic. Everything's in a digital world. Talking to someone, it's maybe getting on stage in front of people, holding an event somewhere where it can be in front of massive amounts of people. More shake our hands, go to a kiosk, or just being out there and just in groups of people and just kind of sending our representatives out there to say, hey, this is a real company. There's real people behind it. It's not hidden behind technology and an app all day. We care about you. We are trying to give you something, and just kind of really connect with the people that we're serving.
Okay. And I noticed also looking at your LinkedIn, you do a lot of like thought leadership and a lot of like personal development type content. Whether it's fitness or just reading certain books that have inspired you too. You've done some posts about like how much has that been a part of your strategy too to connect with other people on LinkedIn and platforms like that to continue to grow the business?
Yeah, I've been blessed. I've been surrounded my entire life with people who are, I would say, extreme biohackers in the personal development space as well. So I've always reading books and getting to meet people, and so they give me a lot of great information. A good during the pandemic, there was a crane in front of her house one day, and my wife's like, "What's going on?" And I had a barrel sauna dropped off, and so I started reading about hot cold therapy. So I bought a sauna and started doing the hot and cold baths and doing that. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I did it for a couple of reasons, but more was for more mental health because I was stuck inside indoors during that time period. And it worked for two things. It was great for me to relieve stress, and it was good for me to recover with my body physically. So I always find both are connected. And then I kind of went down that path. As anything I see or hear about, I sometimes test it out and try it out. I do breath work, I do breathing, I eat right, I exercise every day. I make sure to drink a lot of water. And then I work on some things, journaling, always reading new books. I do a lot of things, but I've kind of packaged it together. If you've ever heard about habit stacking, is to kind of stack it all together so it's not overwhelming, where I'm getting most of it done in a 20 to 30-minute time period once a day. So it's not too overwhelming for myself. And I'm always iterating over time. If I find something new, I might try it out. And I know how to incorporate it into my schedule. It's something that I swear by. I do it every single day. I'm doing something, and I'm always learning from it and trying new things. And on this day, it's funny because I was doing some biometrics this morning, and I had one of the best scores I've had in 5 years on some of them. I was like, wow. So I was looking at my resting heart rate last night, was in the low 40s, and my HRV was at a good level for my age. I haven't had that high in a long time. And of course, I have one of those beds that you can manipulate the hot cold of the bed itself. So I have it more on cold. So it has settings and it reads your biometrics while you sleep. And I swear by it. And yeah, so it's something that I'm very, very proud of. And I would promote it to people. If you have a chance, you could start with something simple. You could start with breath work. You could always, an ice bath is not hard. You could get some ice and do it in your tub or something just to start with. There's cheap things you could buy too along the way. You don't have to go to the fancy ones that cost $5,000 or $10,000 that you see online. There's stuff that you could get for a couple $100 just to test it out, see if it works for you.
In my world, personal brand is invaluable. A year ago, Easy DC was brand new with just a couple of customers and no online presence. Then I found Hicks Marketing. They helped me amplify my personal brand, build a solid content strategy, publish my podcast, and 10x the number of customers we serve, all in less than 1 year. Do you need a marketing partner who gets you and cares about your success? Reach out to Alicia at hicksmarketing.com for more info and tell her Dave Goulas sent you. Yeah, I agree. And listen, I do a lot of the stuff you rattled off, not with the bed and all that, but I mean, I take ice cold showers every day, and it's cheap and it's effective, right? Definitely wakes you up, and it's great after a workout for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That's where it started. Was doing the cold showers first, and when you jump in an ice bath for the first time, it's quite an experience. You go to yourself, I'm never ever going to do this again. And I was like, can I make a minute? Can I make a minute? And I made the minute. The next time, can I make a minute 15? Then I made a minute and 15. And I kept working myself up to I'm at 4 or 5 minutes now. I could go a good amount of time. So, but it was chipping away, right? And it really starts with your mind and kind of just telling yourself that you can do it. Then once you do it a couple times, you can do it, then you can get back in that state, and then you just kind of iterate upon that.
And clearly, right, you've built up a fabulous routine and you've invested heavily in yourself and to do all this. How big of a difference do you think that makes in you being able to deal with the stress of entrepreneurship and everything that comes along with that?
Yeah, it's everything. It's everything. I don't think I could have done it without finding a way to cope with the stress along the way. And it's to me, I find now is when I'm more preventive. I do it consistently, so I don't get myself in that situation where I am stressed. I'm making sure I'm doing it systematically, maybe every other day, proactively. So it kind of manages myself and keeps me always in a good spot. So I kind of built that muscle is a good way with time and just being iterative and changing things up again, optimizing and understanding myself what works for me. Whereas I don't really get stressed out nowadays. If something serious happens, I kind of look at it just as a challenge, and I'm more like I dive into it. And that is a byproduct of kind of starting with this journey of just improving myself in an iterative process, day over day, every day for a long time.
Okay. And something else too that you did a post on that I really liked is you talked about failure in regards to entrepreneurship, and you had a little chart where the shock, the denial, the frustration, and then going through the valley of despair, and then upward climb to acceptance, and then eventually integration. And I'm sure a lot of the entrepreneurs listening to this can relate to that, of being in that valley of despair where, man, you're giving it your all and things are just not where you want them to be. And I mean, just talk about going through that and kind of coming out on the other side of that and what that's been like for you.
Yeah. It goes way, way, way back. It's just, I got in a habit of kind of diving into things, and the more I failed, the stronger I got. So each time I kind of done something and didn't work out the way I wanted to, we did it again and again. And it's kind of got into that, I won't call it a habit, but an understanding that each thing I'm doing is a lesson. There's some learning I could do and developing that muscle. And it wasn't really a setback. And yeah, we when I was younger, myself personally, it was a little harder to do. But as I got older and I'm just having that mindset that each thing I'm doing, I'm not failing, I'm learning, and just kind of changing that, not as a failure, but more as a lesson. What did I learn from it? What could I have done differently? not beat up myself, but just what did I learn from it? What can I take from this? So next time when I encounter that situation, I have better options to do. And doing that again and again and again, and you multiply that, it's probably been 10,000 times it's happened. And it happens every day. No matter what you do, there's something in your day that you're learning from. And just understanding that, you develop kind of that muscle and that mind muscle of just, it doesn't really affect you as much, and you get better and better at it dealing with those situations that are that pop up every day. And I don't want to say they're stressful situations. They're situations. And why have that adjective? Good, bad situation, it's a situation. And really kind of having that mindset, just a situation. It's just a conversation, right? And so just going into it, something like that, it really kind of decreases that stress that most of us kind of live in our own heads and cause our own stress. And learning that that's not a stressful event. It's more my perception of that event is causing that stress.
Yeah, that's so true, right? And I love that reframe too, where because no one sets out planning to fail, but it's inevitable when you're out there and you're trying new things and you're growing a business. There's going to be a lot of failures. So, I'm not failing, I'm learning. Love that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a weekend where my bank went out of business, and I'm like, what do I do? I got a couple commas there, with Silicon Valley Bank, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Right? And I'm like sitting there, I'm freaking out a little bit. I'm going, okay. And then my little rational mind was going, it's going to work itself out. Remember the last downturn? I'm like, so my rational mind's going, it's going to work out. And then my other panic mind's like, well, it might not work out. And then I have another mind that's going, well, what's your fiduciary responsibility to your company? Like, oh, great. All these voices in my head. So I had to take, even though in my gut, I felt like it was going to work itself out, I still had a fiduciary responsibility to take action. So here I am, like, calling everyone up over the weekend to make sure I have funds in my business to run it the next day. And fortunately, it worked out that the government came in, bailed it out, and the bank got sold over that weekend, and the market was fine. Our funds were fine. But that's another example of a stressful situation. I don't know what happened when you have north of $10 million in a bank, and it boom could be gone overnight. What do you do, right? It's not a it's not a situation I'd like to repeat, but at the end of the day, we made it through, and it was a tough thing to experience.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not stress for an entrepreneur, right? I mean, what is? So, okay. Yeah, like you said, right? The routine and just the things that you doing the hard things and working on yourself to develop those mental muscles certainly can help you with situations like that.
Yeah, it was I mean, surprisingly, I felt like my wife was like, "You're pretty calm," and I was like, "Yeah, well, I think it's going to work itself out, and I've been through stuff, so I don't, I'm not too." I was kind of impressed that I wasn't more stressed than I should have been. So I was concerned, but not like stressing out. So I slept. I slept those nights. So that stress usually means you can't sleep. I slept like 8 hours. So I was like, okay, I'm handling this, and it worked out well. So I would have felt guilty if I slept and it didn't work out. That would have been bad. But yeah, it worked itself out. And who knows what's, there's always something being thrown at you. You don't know what's going to happen today, tomorrow, right? So just kind of, again, develop that muscle, develop how your routines, and make sure you're prepared mentally for those situations that might arise in your life.
Sure. Another post that you like or that you wrote is you said success requires selfishness. And in order to sustain success, you've got to protect your time, prioritize the people you love, and get really good at saying no. And, as someone that's a founder and growing a business and has a family, and I'm sure has all sorts of other uh, things coming at you, how do you balance that, giving your family the time they need, giving the business what it needs, and and obviously your self-care routine to keep yourself as sharp as possible? How do you balance all that?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say it's through iteration, it's trial and error. Over time, I've been able to kind of, and then just having a sense of my surroundings. An example could even be last week. I was working pretty hard. I had to work some late nights. We're growing our company, so we're onboarding a lot of new people. We've brought in up a lot of people this last 30 days, and my wife was a little sick, and I have 3 kids. One's young, and she's a little high energy. Let's call her really high energy. And I just kind of one day I said, hey, I'm just taking her to the office with me, and it was the middle of the week, and I usually don't do that, and that was kind of like just kind of understanding that situation that I needed to give my wife a break and put family first in the situation, knowing that my daughter disrupts my whole business is not the best thing. I should have just took half the day off, but just understanding that and just to balance it out. So kind of being flexible and just being aware of the things around you. And yeah, and I was selfish. I was selfish. It was like to me that was family first, my daughter first, and work was second that day for me, and that situation. And another things is just a lot of, you hear stories about this, but like you have friends who always want to contact you or do something. With time, you have to be selfish and like, okay, what is this friendship about at the end of the day? Is this a friendship that what is in it for me in this friendship? And I hate to sound that court with it, but it's like, hey, it's some of those relationships just kind of fade away unless you're getting something out of it. So if it was a buddy like, hey, want to do an ice bath or a sauna, maybe I make time for them. Whereas if someone want to go out to dinner, I probably can't do. And kind of reframing some of your relationships and with that. And in the business world, especially too, is at the end of the day is you want to be receptive to everybody, but you can't. And whether that's employees, you have a lot of employees, it's not humanly possible to talk to everyone that works for you at the end of the day. You might have to talk to your directs. And it's not like, hey, I'm being selfish or pushing you aside. It's just I just don't have time to engage in an hour conversation with every employee. That's something that's just not practical to get things done. So there's a lot of circumstances and a lot of situations where you just gotta kind of focus on your time, because that's a commodity that is so important to success. And along the way, just you get good at it. You have to be artful in the way how to say no. I would say you want to go, no, don't get away from me. Don't talk to me. You can't be like that. Just you have to have a little bit of a little art with that, let's just say.
Sure, absolutely. And another post too, is you said you canceled your 5-day retreat into the mountains because you're in battle season. And there's some seasons where you're privileged enough to do those type of things, but right now I need to be head down, firing on all cylinders and putting in the hours. I mean, is that say like you said, you're in a growth mode, onboarding customers? Is that same type of mindset in terms of that this is a season to just really go all in with business?
Yeah, that was a very, very tough thing for me. And I was part of a men's group and I was getting groomed to be leadership in it. And I was one older, and it was a younger group, a couple hundred people there, and I'm probably in the top, I'd say 5% in the age there. And I was really getting groomed. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was relaxing. But I'm in the mountains and no cell phone access, no internet access, just phones off. And the business had some big needs, and I really wanted to go to this event. It was great for my personal growth as a person at the end of the day. And I knew, and I always go back from these events. I feel like I'm on this natural high, and I'm just a better person to be around. And I had to say no. I canceled like 2 days before. I had to tell them, no, I can't do this. I can't participate in this because I had to get things done in my business that were just critical for the business to actually like thrive, and survive a tough moment in the business. And I had to get into that, I call it warrior state. I had to go into battle, and I had to go in and do that, and that had to be my focus. Even though I wanted to be part of giving back and growing myself personally, I just had to sacrifice that weekend. And yeah, it was a tough decision because I really missed out on a great opportunity. But things did work out for me by diving into things here.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something many people can relate to, I'm sure, is just that those tough decisions where, intuitively, this is the time I have to spend. And even if you're missing out on, like you said, a retreat or something else that would be beneficial and important, sometimes you just have to, put the business first and put the hours in.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to do it. That's what it takes. You got to do what it takes, and that's part of being a business owner, an entrepreneur, a CEO is you have to do what it takes to get the job done.
Yeah. All right. So with how you've grown Diversity Fund 2, you've got over 30,000 investors. Like you said, you've got, a few hundred million under management. Like what does success look like for you, for the company over like the next 5 years?
Yeah, I am 120% in this company. Well, I have a 12-month goal to become a billion-dollar company. So I'm pressing real hard, massive growth right now, hiring a lot of people, going to market, getting the branding out, get our messaging, get our narrative out. That is my goal, is to get from the 3 to 400 million to $1 billion. I believe we could do it, and I am pushing the throttle to make that happen. And it's going to be an exciting journey to do that in 12 months or less is my goal.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right, and if people want to find out more about Diversifund and get involved and or just catch up with you and find out more about what you're doing, what's the best way people can reach you?
Yeah, for myself, it's my social media. You could LinkedIn, Instagram, Craig Cecilio, CXC Cecilio. Diversifund is diversifund.com. You can read about us online. If you're interested in it, check it out. It's a pretty cool concept. It's a reality. It really does work. So for those of you out there who think this is more of an idea, no, it actually did happen. It actually is working. We have a big vast customer base. And I post a lot about my biohack and stuff and what I do in my personal life through my social media. So you can look at that. More Instagram's more personal, and YouTube than in LinkedIn and Twitter.
Okay, excellent. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everyone as well. Okay. Well, Craig, thank you so much for taking the time today. Appreciate that. And that's all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.
Great. Thanks, David. Appreciate it.